The glass shattered against the wall inches from Kesha's head, exploding into 1,000 glittering pieces that rained down on her shoulders. She didn't even flinch anymore. She had learned not to. "Look at me when I'm talking to you!" Marcus's roar filled their tiny apartment as his hand shot out and grabbed a fistful of her hair, yanking her head back so violently that white-hot pain exploded across her scalp. Kesha's scream caught in her throat as he dragged her across the living room floor. Her knees scraped against broken glass, tearing through her work pants. The metallic taste of blood filled her mouth where she had bitten her tongue. "Please, Marcus, I'm sorry," she choked out, her hands clawing uselessly at his grip. "Sorry?" He threw her against the wall so hard the pictures rattled. Her shoulder connected with the plaster, and something cracked. "You're always sorry, but you never learn." His fist came out of nowhere, connecting with her cheekbone. The world exploded in stars and pain. Kesha's legs gave out, and she crumpled to the floor, tasting copper, seeing double. Through blurred vision, she saw him standing over her, chest heaving, eyes wild with that terrifying rage she knew too well. For a moment, she thought this was it. This was the night he finally killed her. Then he grabbed her by the collar of her uniform and hauled her to her feet like she weighed nothing. Her legs barely supported her as he dragged her to the apartment door and threw it open. "Get out!" he screamed, his spit flying into her face. "Get out of my sight before I do something we both regret." Marcus shoved her hard, and Kesha stumbled backward into the hallway. Her feet tangled and she went down, her body hitting the floor with a sickening thud. Pain exploded through her ribs where his fist had connected just minutes before. "You worthless piece of trash!" Marcus's voice boomed through the doorway, his silhouette filling it completely. His eyes were bloodshot and wild, veins bulging in his neck. "Don't you dare come back here tonight!" The door slammed shut with such force that the sound echoed like a gunshot through the empty hallway. The deadbolt slid home with a final, damning click. Kesha lay on the stained carpet, her body trembling, unable to move. Blood dripped from her split lip onto the floor. The cold November air from the broken hallway window bit into her skin through her torn work uniform. She had been home for barely 15 minutes when he started. She pushed herself up slowly, wincing at the sharp pain in her side. Her vision blurred with tears that she refused to let fall. Not here, not where anyone could see. She had learned long ago that crying only made things worse, that showing weakness was like blood in the water. Kesha stumbled to her feet, her legs unsteady beneath her. The alley spun around her as she tried to orient herself. Which way was the main street? How long would she have to walk before she found? Somewhere safe to wait until Marcus calmed down? These were questions she had asked herself too many times before. A black car sat idling at the end of the alley, its engine a low purr in the darkness. The windows were tinted so dark she couldn't see inside, but she felt eyes on her, watching, waiting. A shiver ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. She turned and hurried in the opposite direction, her work shoes clicking against the pavement. Every step sent fresh waves of pain through her body, but she forced herself to keep moving. The last thing she needed was some creep following her on top of everything else. The streets of downtown were quieter than usual for a Tuesday night. Most of the shops had closed hours ago, their windows dark and empty. Kesha wrapped her arms around herself, trying to preserve whatever warmth she had left. Her phone was still in the apartment, her jacket too. Marcus had made sure of that before he threw her out. She walked for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. Her feet carried her on autopilot to the one place that felt even remotely like home. Soul Kitchen, the restaurant where she worked as a waitress. The lights were still on inside, which meant someone was closing up. Kesha pressed her face against the glass door, her breath fogging the surface. Inside, she could see Tommy wiping down tables, his movements methodical and tired. She knocked softly, not wanting to startle him. Tommy's head snapped up, his eyes widening when he saw her. He rushed to the door, fumbling with the lock. "Kesha, what the hell happened to you?" His voice was thick with concern as he pulled the door open and ushered her inside. "I'm fine," she said automatically, the lie slipping out as easily as breathing. I needed somewhere to sit for a while. Is that okay?" Tommy's eyes roamed over her face, taking in the split lip, the bruise already forming on her cheekbone, the way she held her ribs. His jaw tightened. "Marcus?" he asked, though it wasn't really a question. Kesha didn't answer. She didn't need to. Kesha, you can't keep doing this, Tommy said gently, guiding her to a booth in the back. You can't keep going back to him. He's going to kill you one of these days. He's just stressed, Kesha heard herself say, the familiar excuses tumbling out. Work has been hard for him. He doesn't mean it. Stop, Tommy said, his voice firm but not unkind. Just stop. I've known you for 3 years, and I've watched you disappear piece by piece. You don't smile anymore. You don't laugh. You flinch every time someone raises their voice. This isn't stress, Kesha. This is abuse. The word hung in the air between them like a physical thing. Abuse. She had never allowed herself to think it, let alone say it out loud. To name it would make it real, and if it was real, then she would have to do something about it, and she was so tired of fighting. I don't have anywhere else to go, she whispered, and this time the tears did fall. They streamed down her cheeks in hot rivulets, stinging the cut on her lip. I have no money, no family. If I leave him, I have nothing. Tommy reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You have yourself. That's more than enough. But it didn't feel like enough. It never had. Tommy made her a sandwich from the kitchen and a cup of tea that she wrapped her cold hands around. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the only sound the hum of the refrigerators and the occasional car passing outside. You can crash at my place tonight, Tommy offered. My roommate won't mind. No, Kesha said quickly. Marcus will calm down. He always does. I just need to give him a few hours, then I'll go back. Tommy looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew it would be pointless. They had had this conversation before, and it always ended the same way. At midnight, Kesha thanked Tommy and left the restaurant. The streets were even emptier now, the city having settled into its late-night rhythm. She walked slowly back toward her apartment, dreading what awaited her, but knowing she had no choice. The black car was there again, parked across the street from her building. She noticed it immediately this time, her instincts prickling with awareness. Was it the same car from earlier? In the darkness, she couldn't be sure, but something about it felt familiar. She quickened her pace, climbing the steps to her building's entrance. Her hands shook as she reached for the door, half expecting Marcus to burst through and drag her inside by her hair. But nothing happened. The building was silent. She made it to their apartment on the 3rd floor and pressed her ear against the door. She could hear the television inside, some late-night show with canned laughter. No sounds of movement. Maybe he had fallen asleep. Kesha took a deep breath and turned the doorknob. Locked. Of course it was locked. She knocked softly. Marcus, it's me. Can you let me in, please? No response. She knocked again, a little harder this time. Marcus, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please just let me in. It's cold out here. Still nothing. She sank down against the door, pulling her knees to her chest. She would wait. She had done this before too. Sometimes he made her wait until morning, but eventually, he always let her back in. The hallway was dimly lit by a single flickering bulb at the far end. The walls were stained and peeling, the carpet worn thin in spots. This was her life now, sitting in a dirty hallway, begging a man who hurt her to let her into an apartment that never felt like home. She must have dozed off because the next thing she knew, she was falling. Someone had opened the door behind her, and she tumbled backward into the apartment. Get up, Marcus growled. He stood over her, his eyes bloodshot, a beer bottle dangling from his hand. Look at you, pathetic. Kesha scrambled to her feet, her body screaming, in protest. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to upset you earlier. I'll be better, I promise. Marcus took a swig of beer, his gaze raking over her with disgust. You're always sorry, but you never change, do you? You're lazy, stupid, can't do anything right. I know, Kesha whispered, because agreeing was easier than arguing. I'll try harder. Damn right you will, Marcus said. He grabbed her by the arm, his fingers digging into her flesh hard enough to bruise. And if I ever hear you've been talking about me to those people at work, I'll make sure you regret it. You understand me? Yes, Kesha said. I understand. He shoved her toward the bedroom. Go to bed. You look like hell. Kesha didn't need to be told twice. She hurried to the bedroom and closed the door behind her, leaning against it as her legs finally gave out. She slid to the floor, her body shaking with silent sobs. This was her life. This was what she had accepted. and she didn't know how to escape it. The next morning, Kesha woke before dawn. Marcus was passed out on the couch, snoring loudly, empty beer bottles scattered around him. She moved quietly through the apartment, gathering her things for work. In the bathroom, she assessed the damage in the mirror. The bruise on her cheek had darkened overnight, a vivid purple and blue. Her lip was swollen. There were fingerprint bruises on her arms. She pulled on her long-sleeve work shirt, despite the fact that Soul Kitchen's kitchen was always sweltering. Better to be hot than to answer questions. She covered the bruise on her face as best she could with makeup, but there was only so much concealer could do. People would notice. They always did. At Soul Kitchen, her co-workers greeted her with sympathetic looks and careful questions. "How are you? Are you okay? Did you sleep well?" Each one a veiled inquiry into what everyone already knew, but no one wanted to say directly. "I'm fine," Kesha repeated over and over like a mantra. "Just tired." She threw herself into work, taking orders, delivering food, smiling at customers until her face hurt. Staying busy kept her mind from wandering to dark places. It kept her from thinking about how she had become this person, this shell of who she used to be. During her lunch break, she sat in the back alley behind the restaurant, picking at a salad she had no appetite for. The November sun provided little warmth, but at least it was quiet out here. That's when she saw him. A man stood at the end of the alley, partially hidden in shadow. He was tall, wearing an expensive-looking black coat and dark sunglasses despite the overcast sky. His hands were tucked into his pockets, and he seemed to be looking directly at her. Kesha's heart jumped into her throat. The car, the man. Was he the one who had been following her? She stood up quickly, her salad forgotten. "Can I help you?" The man didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, watching. "I said, 'Can I help you?'" Kesha repeated, her voice shakier this time. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the man turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner as silently as he had appeared. Kesha's hands trembled as she gathered her things and hurried back inside. She told herself she was being paranoid, that it was just a random person passing by. But some instinct deep inside her knew better. Someone was watching her, and she had no idea why. The days blurred together after that. Kesha went to work, went home, endured Marcus's mood swings and violent outbursts, then repeated the cycle. The bruises accumulated, each one a story she had to explain away. She fell. She bumped into a door. She was clumsy. No one believed her, but no one pushed too hard either. What could they do? She was an adult. She made her own choices, even if those choices were slowly killing her. She kept seeing the man, though. He was always there, lurking at the edges of her awareness, in the black car that seemed to follow her route to work, standing across the street when she left the restaurant late at night, sitting in a booth at the far end of Soul Kitchen, never ordering anything more than coffee, his eyes hidden behind those dark sunglasses. It should have terrified her. It should have sent her running to the police. But instead, she felt something else entirely. She felt watched over, protected almost, which was insane. She knew it was insane. 2 weeks after that night in the alley, everything changed. It was a Friday night, and Soul Kitchen was packed. Kesha had been on her feet for 9 hours straight, her body aching with exhaustion. All she wanted was to go home, take a hot shower, and sleep. But when she got home, Marcus was in one of his moods. She could tell the moment she walked through the door. He was pacing the living room, his jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists. "You're late," he said, without looking at her. "My shift ran over," Kesha explained carefully. "It was busy tonight." "I don't care if the restaurant was on fire," Marcus snapped. "I told you to be home by 9. It's 9:30. "I'm sorry," Kesha said automatically. "It won't happen again." "You're damn right it won't," Marcus said. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and grabbed her by the throat, slamming her against the wall. "Because you're going to quit that job tomorrow." Kesha's eyes widened in panic. "What? No, I can't quit. We need the money." "We need the money?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You make barely anything at that dump, and I'm sick of you coming home smelling like grease and acting like you're too tired to take care of me." His grip tightened on her throat, cutting off her air. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision. "Marcus, please," she wheezed. "I can't breathe." He held on for another agonizing moment before releasing her. Kesha collapsed to the floor, gasping and coughing. "You'll quit." "Tomorrow," Marcus said coldly, "and then you'll stay here where you belong, where I can keep an eye on you." Kesha's mind raced. If she quit her job, she would lose the only escape she had, the only place where people treated her like a human being, the only source of income that gave her even a shred of independence. "No," she heard herself say. Marcus's head snapped toward her. "What did you just say?" Kesha looked up at him, and for the first time in years, she felt something other than fear. She felt anger, hot, burning anger that rose up from her chest and made her bold. "I said no," she repeated, louder this time. "I'm not quitting my job. You don't get to control every part of my life." Marcus's face turned red. "You ungrateful bitch," he snarled. "After everything I've done for you, I gave you a place to live. I put up with your worthless ass. And this is how you repay me?" He lunged at her, but this time Kesha was ready. She rolled out of the way and scrambled to her feet, putting the couch between them. "Everything you've done for me?" Kesha shouted, her voice breaking. "You've done nothing but hurt me. You hit me. You starve me. You tell me I'm worthless every single day. I'm not the problem, Marcus. You are." For a moment, Marcus just stared at her, shock registering on his face. Then his expression twisted into something ugly and dangerous. "You're going to regret that," he said quietly. He came at her fast, vaulting over the couch. Kesha tried to run, but he caught her by the hair and yanked her backward. She screamed as pain exploded across her scalp. Marcus dragged her to the door and threw it open. "Get out!" he roared. "Get out and don't come back. You want to be independent? Fine. Let's see how long you last on your own." He shoved her into the hallway with such force that she stumbled and fell. Before she could get up, he threw her purse after her, its contents scattering across the floor. "And take your shit with you," he yelled. He slammed the door, and she heard the deadbolt slide into place. Kesha sat on the floor, stunned. Her hands shook as she gathered her scattered belongings, her phone, her wallet, her keys that no longer opened anywhere. Her apartment key was on the other side of that door, on the hook by the entrance. She had really done it this time. She had pushed back, and now she had nowhere to go. The hallway was silent except for her ragged breathing. She pushed herself to her feet, wincing at the fresh pain in her hip where she had hit the floor. How many times could a body take this kind of abuse before it just gave up? She needed to think. She needed a plan, but her mind felt foggy and slow, shock settling in like a heavy blanket. Kesha made her way down the stairs and out into the street. The November night air hit her like a slap, cold and sharp. She stood there on the sidewalk, looking up at the building that had been her prison for 2 years. Where could she go? Tommy's place. But it was past midnight now, and she didn't want to impose. A shelter? The thought made her stomach turn. She wasn't that desperate yet, was she? She started walking with no destination in mind. Her feet carried her through familiar streets, past closed shops and dark windows. The city felt emptier than usual, like everyone had disappeared and left her alone in this nightmare. That's when she felt it again. That sensation of being watched. She turned her head and saw the black car creeping along the street behind her, matching her pace. Her heart hammered in her chest. This was it. This was how she died, murdered by some stalker on a cold November night because she had finally stood up for herself. The car pulled up beside her and the window rolled down. "Get in," a man's voice said. It was deep and calm, with an accent she couldn't quite place. Kesha kept walking. "Leave me alone. You're hurt," the man said, "and you have nowhere to go. Get in the car, Kesha." She stopped dead in her tracks. He knew her name. She turned to look at him fully for the first time. The interior of the car was dimly lit, but she could make out his features. He was younger than she expected, maybe in his late 20s or early 30s. His face was beautiful in an almost unsettling way. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, dark eyes that seemed to see right through her. His black hair was perfectly styled, and he wore what looked like a designer suit. "How do you know my name?" Kesha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Get in," he repeated, "and I'll explain everything." Every rational part of her brain screamed at her to run. This was how women disappeared. This was how bodies ended up in rivers. But another part of her, the part that was broken and exhausted and so desperately tired of surviving, didn't care anymore. What was the worst that could happen? He could kill her? At least then she would be free. Kesha walked around to the passenger side and opened the door. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. She slid into the seat, and the door closed behind her with a solid thunk. The man didn't speak right away. He just looked at her, his dark eyes scanning her face, cataloging every bruise and cut. His jaw tightened. "My name is Hune," he said finally, "and I've been watching you for a long time." Kesha's breath caught in her throat. "Why?" Hune's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Because 2 years ago, I saw you for the first time at Soul Kitchen. You were serving my table, and you smiled at me like I was the only person in the world. It was the most genuine, beautiful smile I had ever seen. And I knew right then that I had to protect you." Kesha stared at him. That's insane. You've been stalking me for 2 years?" "Not stalking," Hune corrected. "Watching, protecting. Do you have any idea how many times Marcus would have done worse if I hadn't intervened? How many times I've had my people keep him from crossing lines he can never come back from?" Kesha's mind reeled. "Your people? Who are you?" Hune pulled the car away from the curb, driving smoothly through the empty streets. "Someone who has resources, someone who has power, someone who can keep you safe." "Safe from what?" Hune glanced at her, and in his eyes she saw something that made her blood run cold. Not danger directed at her, but danger he was capable of unleashing on her behalf. "From Marcus," he said simply. "From anyone who would hurt you. From yourself." They drove in silence for a while. Kesha watched the city pass by outside the window, everything looking surreal and dreamlike. Was this really happening? Had she finally cracked under the pressure, and this was all some elaborate delusion? "Where are we going?" she asked eventually. "My place," Hune said. "You need food, rest, medical attention." "I don't even know you," Kesha protested weakly. Hune smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "You know me better than you think. I've been there, Kesha, in the shadows, always watching, always making sure you were okay. You just never saw me." The apartment Hune took her to was in a part of the city Kesha had never been to before. The kind of place where doormen wore suits and marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. She felt wildly out of place in her stained work uniform and disheveled hair. Hune led her to a penthouse on the top floor. When he opened the door, Kesha gasped. The space was enormous, all floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the glittering city below. The furniture was sleek and modern, the kind she had only seen in magazines. Everything was pristine, elegant, expensive. "Sit," Hune said gently, guiding her to a plush couch. "I'll get the first aid kit." Kesha sat, her body sinking into the soft cushions. She felt like she had stepped into another world entirely. How was any of this real? Hune returned with a white medical kit and knelt in front of her. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to her face. Kesha nodded mutely. His touch was impossibly gentle as he cleaned the cut on her lip and applied ointment to her bruises. His fingers were warm against her cold skin, and she found herself leaning into the contact despite her better judgment. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. Hune met her eyes. "Because you deserve better than what he gave you. Because I've watched you suffer for 2 years, and I can't watch it anymore. Because..." He paused, his jaw working. "Because I fell in love with you, Kesha, with your strength, your kindness, the way you keep going even when everything is trying to break you." Tears welled up in Kesha's eyes. "You don't know me. I know that you share your tips with the kitchen staff even when you can barely afford your own meals," Hune said. "I know that you stay late to help close even when you're exhausted. I know that you've never once spoken badly about Marcus to your co-workers, even though they all know what he does to you. I know that you're stronger than you think you are." A sob escaped Kesha's throat. "I'm not strong. I'm weak. I let him hurt me over and over again." "No," Hune said firmly. "Survival isn't weakness. You did what you had to do to stay alive. But now..." He cupped her face gently in his hands. "Now you don't have to survive anymore. You can live." Kesha didn't know what to say, didn't know how to process any of this. So instead, she asked the question that had been nagging at her since she got in his car. "Who are you really, Hune? And don't tell me you're just some rich businessman with resources." Ji-Hyun pulled back slightly, his expression growing serious. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "I'm the heir to the Baek family," he said quietly, "one of the most powerful Korean crime families operating in this city." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and loaded. You're in the Mafia?" Kesha breathed. "Yes," Ji-Hyun said. He turned to look at her, and in the city lights, his face looked both beautiful and dangerous. "I control territory, businesses, people. I've done things that would make you run screaming if I told you. But I've never lied to you, Kesha, and I never will." Kesha should have been terrified, should have run for the door and never looked back. But instead, she felt a strange sort of calm settle over her. "Marcus wanted to sell me," she heard herself say. Ji-Hyun's entire body went rigid. "What?" "About a month ago, I heard him on the phone," Kesha continued, her voice hollow. "He was talking to someone about money, about a debt he owed, and he said he had something valuable to trade, someone. He was going to give me to his dealer to clear his debt." Ji-Hyun crossed the room in 3 long strides and knelt in front of her again. "Did he hurt you? Did anyone come to the apartment?" "No," Kesha said. "I think he was too scared. But I knew it was only a matter of time. That's part of why I finally stood up to him tonight. Because I'd rather die fighting than live as someone's property." Ji-Hyun's hands clenched into fists. "He will never touch you again," he said, his voice low and deadly. "I promise you that." "What are you going to do?" Kesha asked. "What needs to be done?" Ji-Hyun said. "Marcus is a problem that I should have solved a long time ago. But I was trying to be patient, trying to let things unfold naturally. I see now that was a mistake." "Don't kill him," Kesha said quickly. "Please, I don't want that on my conscience." Ji-Hyun studied her face. "You still care about him? After everything he did to you?" "No," Kesha said firmly. "I don't care about him at all, but I care about me, and I don't want to be the reason someone dies, even if that someone is Marcus." Ji-Hyun nodded slowly. "All right, no killing. But he will disappear from your life permanently. You have my word." Kesha believed him. She didn't know why, but she did. "You should rest," Ji-Hyun said, standing. "The bedroom is through that door. I'll sleep out here." "I can't take your bed," Kesha protested. "You can and you will," Ji-Hyun said. There was no room for argument in his tone. "Sleep, Kesha. You're safe now. I promise." Kesha didn't have the energy to argue. She stood on shaky legs and made her way to the bedroom. It was as luxurious as the rest of the apartment, with a bed so large and soft it looked like a cloud. She collapsed onto it fully clothed and was asleep within seconds. When Kesha woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. Marcus, the fight, Ji-Hyun, the revelation that she had somehow stumbled into the protection of a Mafia heir. She sat up slowly, her body aching, but surprisingly well rested. She couldn't remember the last time she had slept so deeply. The smell of coffee and food drew her out of the bedroom. In the kitchen, she found Ji-Hyun at the stove, cooking what looked like a full breakfast. He had changed into casual clothes, black pants, and a simple white shirt that somehow still looked expensive. "Good morning," he said, without turning around. "I hope you like American breakfast. I'm not much of a cook, but I can manage eggs and bacon." Kesha stood in the doorway, unsure of what to do or say. This felt too normal, too domestic, like she had stepped into someone else's life. "Sit," Ji-Hyun said gently, gesturing to the kitchen island. "Eat, then we'll talk about what comes next." Kesha sat and watched as he plated the food. Her stomach growled at the sight of it. When was the last time she had eaten a proper meal? Ji-Hyun set the plate in front of her, along with a mug of coffee. "Cream and sugar are on the counter." "Thank you," Kesha said quietly. They ate in silence for a while. The food was simple but good, and Kesha found herself eating more than she had in weeks. "I have people watching Marcus," Ji-Hyun said eventually. "He got drunk last night after you left and passed out. He woke up this morning and went to work. He hasn't tried to contact you." Kesha set down her fork. "How do you know all that?" "I told you," Ji-Hyun said. "I have resources. I've had people watching him, watching you, for 2 years now." "That's invasive," Kesha said, but there was no heat in her voice. She was too tired to be angry. "I know," Ji-Hyun said. And I'm sorry, but I'd rather invade your privacy than let something terrible happen to you. Kesha took a sip of her coffee, thinking, what happens now? I can't stay here forever. Why not? Hune asked. Kesha blinked at him. Because this is your home. Because we barely know each other. Because this whole situation is insane. You're right, Hune said calmly. It is insane, but that doesn't make it less real. You need somewhere safe to stay. And I have. Plenty of room. So why shouldn't you stay here? Because I can't just be some charity case you picked up off the street, Kesha said, frustration creeping into her voice. I have my own life, my own problems to solve. Then solve them from here, Hune said. Keep your job at Soul Kitchen. Do whatever you need to do, but do it somewhere where you're safe, where you don't have to worry about Marcus breaking down your door in the middle of the night. Kesha wanted to argue, but she couldn't find the words. Because he was right. Going back to her old life meant going back to danger, and she was so tired of being afraid. For a while, she said finally. I'll stay for a little while, until I figure things out, but this isn't permanent. Hune smiled. We'll see. The next few days passed in a strange sort of limbo. Kesha went to work as usual, and Hune's driver took her and picked her up each day. Her co-workers noticed the change immediately. The expensive car, the fact that she was smiling more, the absence of new bruises. Tommy pulled her aside on the third day. Okay, spill, he said. What's going on? And don't tell me nothing because I can see something major has changed. Kesha hesitated. How did she explain any of this? I left Marcus, she said finally. Tommy's face lit up. Really? Kesha, that's amazing. Where are you staying? Do you need help with anything? I'm staying with a friend, Kesha said carefully. Someone who's been helping me out. Tommy looked skeptical. A friend? What kind of friend drives a car like that? A good friend, Kesha said firmly. Someone who cares about me. That's all you need to know. Tommy held up his hands. Okay. I'm just glad you're safe. That's all that matters. But Kesha could see the questions in his eyes. She would have questions too if their positions were reversed. That night, Marcus showed up at Soul Kitchen. Kesha was taking orders at a table near the window when she saw him standing outside, staring in at her. Her blood ran cold. Tommy saw him too and immediately went to call the police. But before he could reach the phone, Marcus pushed through the door. Kesha, he shouted, we need to talk, now. The restaurant fell silent. Every eye turned toward them. Get out, Marcus, Kesha said, her voice shaking but steady. I don't want to talk to you. I don't care what you want, Marcus snarled. He started toward her, his face red with anger. You're my girlfriend, and you're going to come home with me right now. But before he could reach her, two large men in dark suits appeared from nowhere. They grabbed Marcus by the arms and marched him back toward the door. What the hell? Marcus struggled against them. Get your hands off me. I'll have you arrested. One of the men leaned in close to Marcus and said something Kesha couldn't hear. Whatever it was, it made Marcus's face go white. He stopped struggling immediately. The men escorted him outside and into a black SUV. The whole thing took less than 30 seconds. Kesha stood frozen, her heart pounding. She looked around the restaurant and saw Hune sitting in his usual booth at the back, his coffee still steaming on the table. He met her eyes and gave a small nod. He had been there the whole time, watching, protecting. After her shift, Kesha found Hune waiting for her in the alley. What did they say to him? She asked. That if he ever came near you again, there would be consequences he couldn't imagine, Hune said. And that I have evidence of his drug debts and his plan to sell you. Evidence that would see him in prison for a very long time. Is that true? Kesha asked. Every word, Hune said. Marcus is a coward. He won't risk prison. He'll leave you alone now. Kesha felt something inside her crack open. Relief flooded through her so powerfully that her legs went weak. Hune caught her before she fell, his arms strong and steady around her. It's over, he murmured into her hair. He can't hurt you anymore. Kesha clung to him and cried. Not sad tears, but tears of release. Years of fear and pain and exhaustion pouring out of her all at once. Hune held her through it all, patient and quiet, his hand rubbing slow circles on her back. When the tears finally stopped, Kesha pulled back and looked up at him. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You don't have to repay me, Ji-Hyun said. His thumb brushed away a remaining tear from her cheek. Keeping you safe isn't a transaction. It's a privilege. That weekend, Ji-Hyun took Kesha away from the city. They drove for 2 hours into the mountains to a cabin he owned. It was smaller than his penthouse, but just as beautiful, all warm wood and stone fireplaces with windows that looked out over endless forest. I come here when I need to think, Ji-Hyun explained as they unpacked the car. When the city gets too loud, I thought you might need some quiet too. Kesha did need quiet. She needed space to breathe, to process everything that had happened. The cabin felt like exactly what she needed. That evening, they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ji-Hyun had built a fire in the outdoor pit, and the warmth felt good against the mountain chill. Tell me about your family, Kesha said. About the Beck family. I want to understand who you really are. Ji-Hyun was quiet for a long moment. My father built the family business from nothing, he said finally. He came to this country with nothing but ambition and a willingness to do what others wouldn't. He created an empire, territory, businesses, connections that reach into every corner of this city. And you're supposed to inherit all of it? Kesha asked. Yes, Ji-Hyun said. I've been trained for it my whole life. How to lead, how to command respect, how to make hard decisions. My father is getting older. Soon the family will be mine, to run. Do you want it? Kesha asked. Ji-Hyun looked at her, surprised by the question. I've never thought about whether I want it. It's simply what I am, what I've always been. That sounds lonely, Kesha said softly. Ji-Hyun smiled, but it was sad. It is. My whole life has been about duty, about living up to expectations. I've never had the luxury of thinking about what I actually want. What do you want? Kesha pressed. Ji-Hyun turned to fully face her, the firelight dancing across his features. I want this, he said, sitting here with you, talking about things that matter. I want simple moments that have nothing to do with power or territory or family obligations. I want... He paused, as if searching for the right words. I want to be just Ji-Hyun, not the heir, not the future head of the family, just me. Kesha reached over and took his hand, his fingers interlaced with hers, warm and strong. Then be just Ji-Hyun with me, she said. Here, in this moment. No past, no future, just us. They sat like that for hours, talking about everything and nothing. Ji-Hyun told her about growing up in two worlds, the legitimate business front his family maintained and the shadow world they actually operated in. He told her about his mother, who had died when he was young, and how he had never really learned how to connect with people after losing her. Kesha told him about her own childhood, about parents who had died in a car accident when she was 18, leaving her alone and vulnerable, about how she had met Marcus at a time when she desperately needed someone, anyone, to make her feel less alone, about how by the time she realized what he really was, she had been too deep to escape. I'm not that girl anymore, Kesha said, the one who needs someone to save her. These past few days with you, they've shown me that I'm stronger than I thought, that I deserve better than what I accepted. You've always been strong, Ji-Hyun said. You just forgot for a while. But I saw it. Even on that first day 2 years ago, I saw the strength in you. What was it? Kesha asked. That first day. What made you notice me? Ji-Hyun smiled at the memory. You were serving a table with these two kids. They were being loud and messy, and their parents were completely checked out on their phones. But you got down on your knees to their level and talked to them, asked them about their favorite animals, made them laugh. And when you stood up, you had this smile on your face, like making those kids happy had made your whole day. It was genuine kindness in a world that usually has none. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Kesha felt tears prick her eyes again. I remember that day. I went home, and Marcus screamed at me for being late. I had forgotten all about those kids. Well, I never forgot, Ji-Hyun said, and I never will. That night, Kesha lay in the cabin's guest bedroom, staring at the ceiling. She could hear Ji-Hyun moving around in the main room, banking the fire for the night. She thought about everything he had told her, about his loneliness, about the life he never chose but accepted anyway. She thought about her own life, about the years she had wasted with Marcus, about the person she used to be before fear had carved away pieces of her soul. But mostly she thought about Hune, about the way he looked at her like she was something precious, about how safe she felt with him, even knowing what he was capable of, about how for the first time in years she could imagine a future that didn't involve just surviving. The next morning, Hune made breakfast again. Kesha helped this time, and they worked together in the small kitchen, bumping elbows and laughing when she accidentally burned the bacon. "You're a terrible cook," Hune teased. "Says the man who nearly set the toast on fire yesterday," Kesha shot back. It felt normal, domestic, like they had been doing this for years instead of days. After breakfast, they went for a walk through the forest. The air was crisp and clean, smelling of pine and earth. Kesha breathed it in deeply, feeling something in her chest loosen. "I could stay here forever," she said. "Then stay," Hune said, "as long as you want." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, following a path that wound between massive trees. Eventually, they came to a clearing with a small stream running through it. Hune sat on a flat rock near the water, and Kesha sat beside him. Their shoulders touched, and neither of them moved away. "I need to tell you something," Hune said quietly. "Something I should have said from the beginning." Kesha's heart quickened. "What is it?" "Being with me, it comes with risks," Hune said. "My world is dangerous. There are people who would hurt you to get to me, rival families, law enforcement, people I've crossed in the past. If you stay with me, you'll always have to look over your shoulder." "I've been looking over my shoulder for 2 years, Kesha said. "At least with you, I know someone's actually watching my back." "This is different," Hune insisted. "Marcus was one man. What I'm talking about is organized crime, real danger." Kesha turned to face him fully. "Are you trying to push me away?" "No," Hune said quickly. "God, no. I'm trying to be honest with you. I'm trying to give you all the information so you can make a real choice. Not one based on gratitude or fear, but one based on what you actually want." "What I actually want," Kesha repeated. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing the sharp line of his jaw. "What I want is to stop being afraid. What I want is to feel like I matter to someone. What I want is to see where this goes, even if it's complicated, even if it's dangerous. Because for the first time in years, I feel alive." Hune closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. "You matter to me," he said. "Oh, roughly. More than you know, more than is probably wise." "Then show me," Kesha whispered. Hune opened his eyes, and the intensity in them took her breath away. "Kesha, if I start, I won't want to stop. I've wanted you for 2 years, watched you, dreamed about you. If you're not ready..." "I'm ready," Kesha said. "I'm so tired of waiting for my life to start. I'm tired of being afraid. Kiss me, Hune." He did. It was soft at first, gentle and questioning. His lips were warm against hers, tasting of coffee and morning air. Kesha melted into him, her hands sliding up to tangle in his hair. Hune made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, deepening the kiss. His arms wrapped around her waist, holding her like she was something infinitely precious that might slip away. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Hune pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you," he said. "I know it's too soon to say it. I know we're still figuring this out, but I've loved you for 2 years, and I need you to know." Kesha's heart felt too big for her chest. "I don't know if I love you yet," she said honestly. "I don't know if I remember what love is supposed to feel like, but I know that when I'm with you, I feel safe. I feel seen. I feel like maybe I could learn how to love again." "That's enough," Hune said. "That's more than enough." They stayed at the cabin for 3 more days. During that time, something shifted between them. The walls Kesha had built around herself began to crumble. She found herself laughing more, talking more, reaching for Hune's hand without thinking about it. Hune was patient with her. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give. When she woke up screaming from nightmares about Marcus, he held her and talked her through it. When she had moments of panic about what she was doing, he listened without judgment. "You don't have to decide anything right now," he told her one evening as they sat by the fire. "There's no timeline, no pressure. We move at whatever pace you need." "What if I'm broken?" Kesha asked quietly. "What if Marcus damaged me so badly that I can't be what you need?" Ji-Hune pulled her into his lap, cradling her against his chest. "You're not broken," he said firmly. "You're healing. There's a difference. And I don't need you to be anything other than who you are, the woman who survived, the woman who's learning to live again. That's who I fell in love with." On their last night at the cabin, they lay in bed together. Nothing sexual had happened. Kesha wasn't ready for that yet, and Ji-Hune respected it completely. But lying in his arms, feeling his heart beat against her back, felt more intimate than anything she had experienced before. "I'm scared," she admitted into the darkness. "Of what?" Ji-Hune asked, his breath warm against her neck. "Of this ending, of waking up and finding out it was all a dream, of you changing your mind, of going back to the city and everything falling apart." Ji-Hune's arms tightened around her. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised, "and neither are you. We'll face whatever comes together, I promise you that." When they returned to the city, reality came crashing back. Ji-Hune had business to attend to, meetings and obligations he couldn't ignore. Kesha went back to work at Soul Kitchen, trying to slip back into her old routine. But everything felt different now. The apartment, Ji-Hune's apartment that was slowly becoming their apartment, felt like home in a way nowhere else ever had. Her co-workers noticed the change in her, the lightness that hadn't been there before. "You're glowing," Tommy said one day. "This friend of yours, it's more than that, isn't it?" Kesha blushed. "Maybe. I don't know. We're taking things slow." "Good for you," Tommy said, grinning. "You deserve to be happy, Kesha. After everything you've been through, you deserve someone who treats you right." 2 weeks after they returned from the cabin, Kesha was working a late shift when she saw Marcus again. He was across the street, standing under a streetlight, staring at the restaurant, but this time, she felt no fear. She walked outside during her break and crossed the street to him. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice steady. Marcus looked terrible. He had lost weight, his eyes were bloodshot, and his clothes were rumpled. "I want to talk," he said. "Please, Kesha, just 5 minutes." "Fine," Kesha said. 5 minutes. Marcus took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything. I was messed up. The drugs, the drinking, the pressure. I took it all out on you, and that wasn't fair." "No," Kesha agreed. "It wasn't." "I want you to come back," Marcus said. "I'm getting help, going to meetings. I can be better. We can start over." Kesha looked at him and felt nothing. No anger, no fear, no longing, just a strange sort of pity. "No, Marcus," she said gently. "We can't start over. What you did to me, it broke something that can't be fixed. I forgive you because holding on to anger will only hurt me, but I will never come back to you." "It's because of him, isn't it?" Marcus said, his voice turning bitter. "That rich guy, what does he have that I don't?" "Respect," Kesha said simply. "He respects me. He listens to me. He's never once made me feel small or worthless. That's what he has that you don't." Marcus's face crumpled. "I'm sorry," he said again, and this time there were tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry." "I know," Kesha said, "but sorry doesn't change what happened. Goodbye, Marcus. I hope you get the help you need." She turned and walked back to the restaurant, leaving him standing there. When she glanced back, she saw Ji-Hune's black car parked at the end of the block. He had been there the whole time, watching, making sure she was safe. That night, when they got home, Kesha walked straight into Ji-Hune's arms. "I saw Marcus tonight," she said. Ji-Hune tensed. "Did he?" "He apologized," Kesha interrupted. "And I told him it was over, really, truly over, and I felt free." Ji-Hune pulled back to look at her face. "How do you feel now?" "Like I can finally breathe," Kesha said. "Like I can finally start living instead of just surviving." She paused, gathering her courage. "Ji-Hune, I think I'm falling in love with you." Ji-Hune's face transformed, a smile spreading across his features that made him look younger, lighter. "You think?" "I know," Kesha corrected. "I know I'm falling in love with you, and it terrifies me. But it's also the best thing I've ever felt." Ji-Hune cupped her face in his hands. "I have loved you since the moment I saw you," he said. "And I will love you every day for the rest of my life. You never have to be alone again. You never have to be afraid again. I promise you that." He kissed her then, and Kesha kissed him back with everything she had. All the fear, all the hope, all the tentative joy she was learning to feel again. When they pulled apart, Kesha smiled. "So what happens now?" "Now," Ji-Hune said, "we live. We build a life together. We take it one day at a time, and we remember that you're not a victim anymore, Kesha. You're a survivor, and survivors, they're the strongest people I know." That night, as Kesha lay in bed beside Ji-Hune, listening to his steady breathing, she thought about everything that had brought her to this moment. The pain, the fear, the years of suffering under Marcus's control. Part of her wished she could go back and tell her past self that it would be okay, that she would survive, that she would find someone who would treat her like she mattered. But another part of her knew that every step had been necessary, that the woman she was now, stronger, wiser, more aware of her own worth, had been forged in fire, and now she was free. Kesha closed her eyes and let herself drift off to sleep, secure in the knowledge that when she woke up, Ji-Hune would still be there. Tomorrow would come, and the day after that, and the day after that. And for the first time in years, she was looking forward to them all. The healing would take time, the nightmares would probably continue for a while. The trauma didn't just disappear because she wanted it to. But now she had something she hadn't had before. Hope. Real, tangible hope for a future that looked nothing like her past. And that, Kesha thought, as sleep finally claimed her, was everything. 3 months later, Kesha stood in front of the bathroom mirror in Ji-Hune's, their apartment, looking at her reflection. The bruises had long since faded. Her face had filled out, healthy and glowing. Her eyes were bright instead of dull with exhaustion. She looked like herself again. Or maybe she looked like a new version of herself. Someone stronger, someone who had survived and was learning to thrive. "Kesha?" Ji-Hune's voice came from the bedroom. "Are you ready? We're going to be late." "Coming," she called back. They were going to dinner at Tommy's place. It would be the first time Ji-Hune met her friends from work, and Kesha was nervous but excited. Her two worlds were finally coming together. As she walked out of the bathroom, Ji-Hune looked up from where he was adjusting his watch. His eyes softened when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said. "You always say that," Kesha teased. "Because it's always true," Ji-Hune replied. He crossed the room and took her hands. "Are you happy?" Kesha considered the question seriously. Was she happy? There were still hard days. Days when the memories crept in unbidden. Days when she couldn't quite believe that this was real, that it wouldn't all disappear. But underneath all of that was something solid and warm and real. "Yes," she said. "I am. Are you?" Ji-Hune smiled, and it was the genuine, unguarded smile she had learned to treasure. "More than I ever thought possible." As they left the apartment hand in hand, Kesha realized something profound. She had spent so long surviving that she had forgotten what it felt like to actually live, to look forward to things, to feel excited about the future instead of dreading it, to love someone and know, really know, that they loved her back. She had been rescued, yes, but more importantly, she had rescued herself. She had found the strength to leave, to choose herself, to believe she deserved better. Ji-Hune had given her safety and support, but the real work of healing, that had been all her, and she was just getting started. In the car, Ji-Hune reached over and squeezed her hand. "What are you thinking about?" "How far I've come," Kesha said. "How much I've changed, how grateful I am." "I'm the grateful one," Ji-Hune said softly. "You gave me something I never thought I'd have." "What's that?" "A reason to want tomorrow," Ji-Hune said. "A reason to be more than just my father's son or the family heir. You gave me a future, Kesha, a real one, with love and happiness and all the things I thought were for other people. Never for me." Kesha blinked back tears. "We gave each other a future," she corrected. As they drove through the city lights, Kesha looked out at the streets that had once felt like a prison. Now they felt like possibility, like home, like the beginning of something beautiful. She had survived the darkness, and now, finally, she was walking into the light.